silencedv@gmail.com. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us from your country, your community, your local organizations, or your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. With that, Carrie, if you would say hello, greet our listeners for the evening.
Hi, my name is Carrie Hardy. I'm a writer. I love sharing people's stories, and I'm so happy to be here on the show today. Um, if you want to contact me, I'm sure you've heard me before on the show. I know I haven't been on a minute, but um, I've been trying to just introduce myself before everything I do. So my email is imagesattainable@gmail.com, and my Instagram is Carrie Hardy 23, KERRIHARDY 23.
Awesome. Miss Cheryl, would you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm honored to be here. My name is Cheryl McFadden, and I am just, I don't know, I guess I'm a pastor's widow and, just somebody who Tia and I met at church. So I don't really have a whole lot to say about myself, except, as I said, I'm a pastor's widow and I have 2 children and 5 grandsons. So God is good.
And one of the best choir directors and sopranos in the city of
I don't know
Philadelphia.
about that. I'm retiring from that. I still sing, but I don't be directing like that.
Okay. So, listeners, we want to start with sharing some resources. In Australia, we have the National Family Violence Counseling Service. Their website is www.1800respect.org.au. Their phone number is 1-800-737-732. In the UK, we have the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. Their website is www.nationalahelpline.org.uk, and their phone number is 080820000247. Or you can visit Women's Aid. Their website is womensaid.org.uk. And then we have Shelter Safe. They provide information to help connect women and their children across Canada with the nearest shelter for safety and support. There are over 600 shelters across Canada that are more than ready to support women and their children and answer any questions that you may have. Their website is sheltersafe.ca. And for more information, you can email them at info@endvaw.ca. So, listeners, with that, we move into our topic for this evening, which is support. And I have to say that I have been stumped all week long. I could not prepare for this interview the way that I normally prepare. Um, I just couldn't do it. So I've been struggling all week. And so to give you the backstory for those of you who do not know, if you have not read my book, Suffering in Silence, Miss Cheryl McFadden was one of the first people that I went to. She was one of the first people that actually supported me. So I don't know. I'm struggling a bit because I really do want to convey my heartfelt thanks to you, Miss Cheryl. I want to convey the importance of support and what it actually is, what it means. So yeah, I need y'all to help me tonight. Well, just to start off, I remember when I called Miss Cheryl. I had recently left my ex-husband. I moved into my own place. I was still struggling with getting help from the church. All the help and resources that came to me were through outside organizations. Domestic Abuse Project of Delaware County was a huge help to me financially and with their counseling services. They were just a huge help. I ran into wall after wall trying to get help, trying to get someone to listen to me in the church. And I mean several different churches, different denominations, different pastors, different ministers. I was met with unhelpful responses from all of these different people. And I remember, I don't know why I called Miss Cheryl. I don't know. I just remember I was in my house and I walked outside and I sat down on my porch. I had a little chair on my porch. I sat down and I had my phone and I called Miss Cheryl and she answered the phone. And I just remember talking. I just started talking like I just spilled my guts. Everything just poured out. And she let me say everything I needed to say. And when I stopped talking, she said, "You are not crazy." And I just her voice and those words, just the magnitude of what she did for me in that moment. She really helped me to put my feet on the ground. She really did. And just that first sentence, she said, "You are not crazy." And she talked to me, and I can just remember just hearing her voice. And after that, almost every day, it was between Miss Cheryl and my mom. The two of them, just their voices. I had their voices in my ear. And at that point, they were really guiding me and directing me, even in the smallest of things. Miss Cheryl would call me and tell me to eat. She would say, "You have to eat something." She would tell me, "You have to rest." You know, my mom would say, "All right, now you have to get up. You have to get out of the bed. You have to go do what you need to do." My mom would tell me, "Get up, get dressed, go outside, even if it's just for a minute." But it was really just their voices. And never once, Miss Cheryl didn't ask me if I was sure. She didn't tell me I was making a big deal out of the situation. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. Some of the ministers and pastors who were not helpful to me, she knows who they are. She didn't toss me aside. She didn't try to convince me that because I'm a minister or because my ex-husband's a reverend, I was supposed to just still be there and take it and deal with it. So on tonight, I really, as much as possible, would like to emphasize what support really is and what it means. Because had I not had Miss Cheryl and my mother, I truly would not have been able to function. And I mean on a day-to-day basis for myself. I took care of my children. My children were okay, but I couldn't take care of me. Miss Cheryl would tell me, "I don't care if it's just peanut butter and jelly. Go eat." She would, and literally that's what I started, because I couldn't eat anything. As she would tell me, "Eat peanut butter and jelly." And then one day I was eating hot dogs, and then one day I was eating chicken. Miss Cheryl took me through the process. Never once did she say, "Stop calling me." Never once did she say, "I don't have time." She didn't say, "I can't speak to you right now." And I mean, she was calling me herself just to check in. I don't know. Look, I need y'all to help me because I don't. But I guess, Ms. Cheryl, in your own words, if you could describe maybe why you did what you did, for me.
Hmm. That's, I sit and I'm listening to you, and I remember very vividly our conversation at first. And I guess let me just give a backstory that I had been used to seeing you at church with your husband. And, you and I had spoken, remember we had the little group of ministers' wives, and I was kind of like the OG. So I was just kind of, handing out information to those who were coming up behind me, because I know how difficult it is to be a minister's wife and to be a pastor's wife and to be a preacher's wife. And I think that was where my heart was at first. But then once you called me, I first of all have to say I was really shocked, like, because nothing appeared to be wrong. But of course, that's what happens in church. We have our masks on, and we come in, and we got our stockings on and our heels, and we got our kids dressed the way they're supposed to be dressed. And we push off those appearances when inside we're not okay.
Yes.
We're not okay. And I mean, I had my own days when I wasn't okay, not for this type of situation, but just in general, we go to church because we need to get filled up. And so when you called me, I really have to say I was very surprised, but I was not going to, I could not say, well, I don't believe you, and I guess that's just the hand of the Lord, honestly, because first of all, who has time to make up stories like these?
Yes.
I mean, that's what I often think of. I know that some people fake things, and but nobody has time to sit and make up a story like this. And I don't think I kept thinking about the fact that you really risked your life and you risked your children's lives to get away. So nobody would do that for no reason.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I just felt like I can't not listen. Really, all I did was listen. That's what I did, because I didn't have any experience with any, I really, and I'm not going to sit here and lie. I saw my father abuse my mother here and there, in years past. They kind of got themselves together, but I had seen abuse, so I knew what it looked like. But I didn't know what I was doing or saying. So it was the hand of the Lord, honestly. I'm not trying to, my daughter calls me Mary Clarence, Sister Mary Clarence. No, that's not what I'm trying to be. I'm really telling you that it was the hand of the Lord, because I didn't know what to say. But I also knew that you needed to get out what you needed to get out without judgment, without somebody saying, oh, here we go again.
Yes.
You didn't need to hear that. So I just felt like I just need to be support. I just need to shut up, because everything ain't for everybody. So some people want to yap and tell you what you need to do, and you need to do, and you need to do. But sometimes all we have to do is shut our mouth and listen.
Yes.
And that is so much more of a help to someone, because you've allowed them to vent, you've allowed them to get out whatever was inside, and then they feel better. It ain't like the situation may not be better, but they feel better.
Yes.
So honestly, I don't think I did anything for you, Minister Tia, except listen. That's all I did.
No, but you did. So in addition to your listening, you confirmed, that nothing was wrong with me. You literally said you were not crazy. And I had been running up against that. And because you saw my whole family in church, you saw us, and I did such a good job covering the situation. People really didn't believe me. I was literally told that I looked too good. My family looked too good to be in a situation like that. I was told, because now normally I can keep my composure. I think this is a special moment right here. But I could keep my composure. I could tell my story to someone. without crying, without my voice shaking. Like I could just stand flat-footed and tell my story. And people said to me, well, you're not crying, you're not visibly shaken, there's no way that anything like that, could happen. And to stand in the face of ministers and pastors who not only did they try to convince me and tell me that I was supposed to stay married and stay in that situation, I watched those same ministers and pastors tell other women that if they were in abusive situations, they had to get out. They had to save themselves, to call the police. And so I'm like, well, what's different about me? Like, why am I supposed to stay? And that was what I got from his friends. And even, pastors who didn't know us personally, I still got that same response. I was supposed to stay and pray, and it would get better, and keep serving in the church. And I was always made to feel like I wasn't walking in reality. So when you said you are not crazy, that meant the world to me, because I was made to feel that I was making this up. Like I was over exaggerating. And no, the church did not give me that. The church did not give me, what I needed. And after that moment, I vividly remember talking to you on the phone. But that wasn't just it. Like you continued to support me. You didn't have to do what you did. You didn't have to call me. You didn't have to check on me. I mean, I felt like I was one of your kids. I really did. I really did. That care and that support moving forward was just so important. And even when I was in a better place, you were still there. I wasn't tossed to the side. So what you did is just so important, to not be judged, to not be ridiculed or criticized, and because, you were a pastor's wife, I didn't get a lecture, on what I should have done, how I should have been, how I could have avoided the situation, anything like that. I didn't get that, and which I appreciate so much. I just cannot explain the importance, of what you did. And I really just started talking. I didn't ask you for anything.
No,
I didn't say I need A, B, C, or D. I just started talking. I to this day, I can't tell you. I don't know why I called you. I just picked up the phone and called you. But you did exactly what I needed. And that was just that support. I didn't know if you were going to believe me. I remember just being scared. But I also remember feeling like I have to do something.
Right. You couldn't just sit in it. You can't
I
keep
couldn't.
sitting in it.
I couldn't. Because I literally, I was not able to function on my own. Even though I was out of the house, but I still wasn't together, myself. I was trying to begin my healing process.
Right.
But I didn't know what to do, left or right. I didn't know which way to go.
And it was kind of when I think back on it now, listening to you talk, it reminds me of, it was grief. It was grief, and that's something that I could identify with. My husband having been a pastor and passed away. After he passed, I tried to be comfort to people who were going through something similar. And honestly, that's what it was. It was like grief. Like you really, you had done what you needed to do to make yourself safe. But now you had to grieve that relationship and grieve all that had gone on, all that you had been through. You had to figure out, okay, now what I'm about to do. But you hadn't gotten it out yet. You hadn't been able to express it to somebody who would just listen. That's really it. So, like I said, we need to shut up and listen.
Yes.
We talk too much.
Yes.
We talk too much. I'm guilty. We talk too much.
Well, you did it in that moment, and again, I appreciate you, and so I know once I left, and I was able to rebuild my life,
right.
And I remember, when I got to that point of writing my book, I called you, and I asked you, if you would read my first draft. I thought it was going to be months before I got a first draft to you. I think maybe it was a couple of weeks after I talked to you.
It wasn't long, but you
But,
had a lot to get out.
yes, I had a lot to get out, and it came out quickly, and you read, my draft. And one of the reasons that I wanted you to read it is because I wanted to be true to myself. I wanted to, because you were close to me in my situation, and there were things that you saw. I think I wanted an honest set of eyes to look
Mhm.
at it, because whatever I do, I wanted to put the truth forward.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Amen.
I didn't want it to be anything where I was over dramatizing or over
Mm.
exaggerating anything, but I wanted an honest set of eyes to look at it,
Mhm.
and to give me feedback and things like that. But I guess I would ask you, because that was supportive of me as well, for you to take the time to do that, to read the draft. But as you read the draft and even the book as it was done, um, I guess what was there anything in it that I guess was surprising or shocking to
Well,
you?
just, once not that I didn't know that you had been through trauma, but just actually seeing the words on paper, is like, wow. It was a lot. You have really been through a lot. And I'm so proud of you for, first of all, telling your story and not being ashamed of it, because so many of us walk around in shame because we don't want to share. But you never know who you can help. And clearly you're helping people at this point. You know what I mean? Clearly you are. But it was, not so much that it was shocking, but it kind of made me a little sad just
Yes.
to know the real, not that you hadn't shared with me some of it, but some of it I wasn't aware of. And I also felt honored that you would trust me to actually read this stuff before you sent it for publishing or whatever. Just,
Mhm.
like as if I'm somebody, as if my opinion mattered. Like, I'm serious. Like, it really was like, wow, I ain't nobody, and she's asking me to read this. So I really, it was more of just, as you said, as if you was one of my kids. I have to say, I was proud that you got yourself to the point where you can actually put pen to paper and write down the things that I know were hurtful, that I know was hard to keep regurgitating in your mind and think
Yes.
about and put it on paper. That's really hard, but that's also part of healing.
Yes.
So, that it wasn't so much that it was shocking. It was a lot. You
Yes.
know, I knew that there was a lot, but actually seeing it on paper, like, wow, this is a lot. She has really been through a lot. And I understand that people want to make it, that's what they do. They gaslight you and they turn things around and make it look like
Mhm.
you're the problem when it wasn't you at all. And that's where my whole idea to say you're not crazy came from, because people want to make it look like, oh, you the problem, you the problem, you the problem.
Yes.
But staying there was the problem. That
Yes.
was the problem. For real, for real.
Absolutely.
So it was just, and then you turn around and you write another book. Like, okay, like she did it again. Like, and as a way to continue, because that's still continuing your healing,
Yes.
still continuing your healing. But I was just amazed, honestly, that you were able to actually sit and write all this stuff down, because I would have been a basket case.
Well, I was, and until I talked to you, I was.
I would have been a basket case. But I think that's what we have to do. We have to, and we have to, I'm learning more and more. We got to be honest with God. We have to
Yeah.
be honest with him and let him know, like, I don't like this, Lord. I don't like this feeling.
Yes.
I need your help to get rid of this feeling. And I think your writing helped you to, not be able to cry every time you tell your story.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. So, Carrie, do you have a question or a comment for Miss Cheryl?
I definitely think that writing Well, I think it depends on the person. I was gonna say for me, I've always journaled. Like I've been journaling since I was 8.
Oh.
Um, and I writing really helps me reflect and process what I'm feeling.
Mm.
And it also helps me not to bypass my emotions because we go through a lot of things during the day. We feel a lot of feelings. We think a lot of thoughts during the day that we might not even remember, but it might be a crucial part to coming to a better understanding of like what's going on with you and what you're going through. So for me, writing helps me to acknowledge myself and how I'm feeling and helps me to process everything. But I know for some people, writing is it gives them a lot of anxiety. Like
Mm.
it's making them remember and it's making them, sometimes reflection gives people anxiety. So that's interesting because sometimes it's like they don't want to talk to someone either because there's so much fear of judgment. Because
Mhm.
now, especially in this time, it's everyone advocates for therapy. Like when you go on Instagram, when you go on Facebook, it's like get therapy, talk to someone. But there's such this like fear of judgment. And I think that is probably where God comes in because it's like, how do you move past the fear of judgment?
Mm.
Mhm.
Because when you're so traumatized by someone turning their nose up at you, for someone looking at you like with disgust for something that was not your fault, how do
Mhm.
you move past that?
Mhm.
So I feel like that's where God comes in because when you talk to God, it's like you sometimes you do feel like you need to talk to a flesh and bone person, but at the
Mhm.
same time when you talk to God, it's like you don't have those worries, and because you're not talking to another human,
Mm.
you don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And so you can move past those fears. And most of the time when I journal, I am talking to God. Um so yeah, I think judgment is so I think it's so harmful. And then we turn around and we do it to others because we feel like it was done to us, or we feel like it's normal, you know.
Mhm.
So I think that was a great point that Miss Cheryl made about writing and how we need to listen to people.
Yes. So, Miss Shura, I'm absolutely sure that you didn't answer the phone and give me what I needed just because it was me. I know that that's who you are. That's the person that you are. I mean, I'd seen it, and I think somewhere in my mind, just seeing you in church, I think at some point, I wanted to reach out, but I just didn't.
Mhm.
And I went through so much of not knowing if I could trust anybody
Right.
because I felt like, all right, if I went to the pastors and I went to the
Mm.
reverends and the ministers and they shot me down,
Right.
it's like, what are my chances if I go to anybody else? So I know that there was a feeling of, I wanted to reach out to you before, but I just couldn't do it. It was like, because the trust, I didn't have the
Right.
trust. I didn't trust anybody. I
Of
couldn't
course.
trust anybody. But once I actually did, and the response that I got from you, I truly believe that that is who you are. So I would ask you, just in your own words, if you could speak to friends and family of victims and survivors of
Mm.
domestic violence, like what their response should be, how they should respond if they get, a phone call like
Mm.
the call I made to you. Can you talk about what that response should be like?
That's a very good question. I guess for me, as you said, that is who I am. I'm the grandmom that want to help everybody, and that's just me. Sometimes I can't help, but I don't want to see anybody sad. I don't want to see anybody in want, so that is me. But that is a very good question. I think for me, the first thing that I could think was, first of all, as Miss Carrie said, no judgment. Like so
Mhm,
many times we are judged
mhm,
just because of how you look, just because of how you walk, just like you said, everybody's judging you because they see you coming in church and you're with your husband and you have your children and they're all dressed real nice and they're very mannerable and they sit down. And I had two of them on the choir with me. You know, I never would have thought that anything was going on. But at the same time, when you are faced with someone coming to you saying that this is what they're going through, like, first of all, you can't just immediately turn them off, because I think that's what happens. People don't want to get involved. Feel like, oh, well, I know him too, and I don't want to make no waves, and so I don't want him to see me talking to her and think I'm on her side. And, you know, people, no disrespect, but people are stupid, and they just, you know, people are like that, especially when you in church and they know both parties. But I really do feel like, you know, the first thing should be no judgment and just listen to what somebody has to say. Because as I said, I don't see you leaving your house in the middle of the night to go live somewhere else to get away from abusive situation, just all willy-nilly because you just
right.
I'm sorry. That right there makes no sense to me. Like, you did what you did in the middle of the night. You did what you did in moving your things and all of that stuff on like on a schedule. Like, baby,
yes.
So I remember that. I remember you talking to me about that. So you wouldn't have. Who wants to do that?
Exactly. That's not fun.
Pick up a move when I'm supposed to pick up a move. So, you know, it's like, I think, as Carrie said, you have to realize that you can't judge people, because we just had in the Sunday school lesson last week. You don't judge people, because guess what? That same sin that they're in, or whatever situation they're in, you could be in that too. Like, we don't think about it like that. We always want, oh, you know, it's like Job's friends. We want to talk about him. Oh, he must have did something. He must have did something wrong, and that's why the Lord punishing him. That's not for you to say. You don't know.
Yes.
None of us knows why the Lord puts us through whatever test or trial we're going through. But what we're supposed to do is show love, and we're supposed to be helpful. So I just think, you know, to answer your question, I'm sorry, I went all crazy. But I think, you know, it's more of really just listening and not judging somebody, not feeling like, well, oh, she exaggerating. It probably ain't happened like that. Was you there? You wasn't there. You don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How am I going to say that you're exaggerating about how somebody slapped you, or how somebody shook you, or how somebody did something to you? I wasn't there, so I can't say you're exaggerating. You know, so I think it's a fine line. We really have to, people have to stop being so judgy, because that, you know, all the stuff you saying about somebody else can be pointed at you.
Yes.
It really can. It can be pointed at you. And so many times people do that. They want to turn it around, like I said, and they want to make it look like you're the problem. So it must be you, because he's too nice. He wouldn't have did that. But we all know that everybody is not the same behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors, yes.
We know.
And I want to point out, Love Bae, not only was Miss Cheryl supportive, and she's still supportive of me, she never asked me any questions. She didn't grill me. She didn't put me through the process of, you know, just the embarrassing questions, the personal questions, the invading questions. She did not do that. She didn't scrutinize my story. She was just what I needed. And as I was moving along in my process, as I was, you know, coming through my place of healing, she didn't bring it up. Never one time. Miss Cheryl never mentioned my situation. Even when she called me and she said, you know, take care of yourself, eat, get up, get out of the bed. She didn't mention my ex-husband. She didn't mention the abuse, none of it. And when I was in a better place, she wasn't throwing it back in my face. It wasn't, oh, do you remember? And she didn't say anything to anybody. We were in church together. Nobody knew anything unless I said it. She treated me just the same. there was no difference in that. And so I want to mention that that is part of support as well. You know, Miss Cheryl treated me like a normal person. She didn't treat me like something was wrong with me, like I was broken or handicapped in any kind of way. She treated me like a person. She treated me like a mother. She treated me like the woman of God, you know, that I was and am. There was no difference at all. Um, she didn't use me in any kind of way to make herself look good. Miss Cheryl did not go around telling people, I helped Minister Tia with this. I did this. She didn't, none of that. Everything that I had experienced in the past, everything that I was afraid of experiencing again, Miss Cheryl did not do that. And so even with that, you gave me just a new hope, you know, just proof that everybody isn't like that.
Right.
you
You're
gave,
right.
it was like
A lot of
everybody.
people don't do what they do. They have hidden motives
Yes.
about why they do what they do. But for me, it's like the Lord is going to take care of me. He always has. I'm not, you know, that's why my daughter calls me Sister Mary Clarence, but it's true. I just believe God and I know that He has blessed me. I don't, you know, but I think because I have experienced that myself where people were like, oh, you know, I had to help her do this and she
Yes.
had money to do this and they couldn't afford to do that. You know, I've had that done to me. So I know that I will never do it to anybody else. If I can't do something, I can't do it.
Yes.
But if I do something, then I don't mean I got to tell everybody because the Lord knows I did it.
Yes.
And it's not why I ain't do it for the Lord to bless me. I did it because I'm showing love. I'm supposed to. But
Yes.
I think that comes, some of that comes with spiritual maturity and just maturity, period. You know, because a lot of people feel like, oh, she ain't even acknowledged. I went to the Mac machine, I got her $20, and I ain't even. I've heard people say that kind of stuff, and it just grinds my gears because
Yes.
you didn't want to get that $20, don't give it.
Yep. You should be
Don't give it. If you don't want to listen to somebody, don't answer your phone. Because that's the worst thing in the world for somebody to be pouring out their heart. And then you turning around telling everybody, oh, let me tell you what she said. Let me tell you what happened. Come on. That's just not right. I guess because it's kind of for me, I always want to treat people the way I expect to be treated. And we all know that everybody's not the same. Me and Tiffany say this all the time. Just because you would do it doesn't mean that someone else would do it.
Yes.
No, we have to keep that in mind. Everybody does not have the same mindset as you might have, but that was just one of those things. That's something that I'm very, very careful about. But to add to that, I think the other part is, Minister Tia, is that we have to all be, no matter what our situation is, we have to be so careful about who we share with.
Yes.
You have, you know what I mean? Like, because everybody is not the one.
Yes.
Everybody, you know, and it can't be. Sometimes it really should only be one or two people that you really praying with and sharing with. You can't tell everybody everything because a lot of people will be all in your face. Oh, Minister Tia, I love you, blah blah blah, and behind your back, they trying to stab you. You know what I mean? So unfortunate, and that's in the church, that's out the church, that's everywhere. People are, you know, people always have, some people have ulterior motives. So we have to use our discernment and determine, like, is this somebody I can really trust? I mean, you did the right thing by not just trusting anybody. Not to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying, you know, you didn't, because you went to others and others ignored you or tried to sweep what you were saying under the rug. But, you know, we have to, in all of our relationships, we got to be so careful because that one on the job that you think is your friend is the very one trying to step on you to get to your job. So, you know, we have to be really, really careful about who we ask for support from or who we expect, because sometimes the person that you least expect is the one that you get the most support from.
Absolutely. And by that same token, I do want to mention, never at any point, at any time at all, Miss Cheryl has never talked down about my ex-husband. She never said anything against him. She didn't go to the pastors or clergy and say anything about him. She didn't start a campaign, against him or anything like that. She did not do that. She was strictly just supportive of me in the way that I needed that to be. And I say that because some people think that support is, all right, now let's gang up on the perpetrator, the abuser. All right, now let's trash his name. Let's trash his business or her business. Let's destroy her and, make them feel afraid, make them feel like, they're hurt or damage them in some kind of way. That's not support. And there are some specific people that I did not go to and could not go to because that would have been their reactions. There are some people that I specifically did not say, this is my situation, or especially when I was leaving, that I'm leaving and I need you here to help me, because they would have come to fight. That would not even have been about me. That would have been about whatever aggression they wanted to get out. So support really is, what does the person need whom you're with, not what you want to do, not what you think is best, because I didn't need anybody, following him or trying to do anything that I did not say, this is the steps that we need to follow right now.
It's like getting revenge on him.
Yes. And
no, God will take care of that. God will take care of that.
Exactly. And, and after my story became public, I had some people say, well, this is what, can be done or should be done. Like, no, we're not going down that road. That's not what this is. And we're not going to make it about that. So you do have to be, that was another reason why I was careful in whom I reached out to. One, it was the trust issue, and two, it was people doing what they want to do instead of doing what I needed to be done. Again, unless you know me personally, you do not know who my ex-husband is, but Miss Cheryl does, and she did not go on a campaign to trash him in any kind of way. She didn't ask me questions about him. She didn't try to piece the story together and figure out what's what. Get it together so she can go and tell somebody else what it was. That did not happen. She did not do that at all. And I mean, it's been years since I left him, and still I know I can call Miss Cheryl if I need to.
Amen.
Just for a conversation or anything. I can talk to Miss Cheryl about things that have nothing to do with that situation. When I talk to her, she doesn't immediately go back to that. She doesn't drudge up my past, and that is another huge part of support. It's like if you're talking to someone who has been through any kind of situation, any traumatic event, if they don't bring it up, you need to leave it alone.
Yeah, let it alone.
If I'm not talking about my abusive ex, I don't need you to throw that in my face right now. If I've had a miscarriage or lost a marriage or lost a child or lost a job or whatever it is, if I am not introducing the topic in a conversation, I don't need you to pull it up, especially when I have made peace and I've moved forward, and you just feel like just because you want something to talk about, you want to throw it up. That's not support at all. It's not helpful at all. I want to share some more resources, and then Carrie, I'll ask you if you have a question or a comment for Ms. Cheryl. We want to welcome you again to Surfing in Sounds with Minister Tia. We are here with you again every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We have a replay on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern, and also again on Thursdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern. For additional resources, we have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org. Their phone number is 1-866-293-4483. We have the National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline. Their website is loveisrespect.org. Their phone number is 1-866-331-9474. And then we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org, and their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And with that, Carrie, do you have a question or a comment for Ms. Cheryl? You're on mute, Carrie.
Sorry, I just wanted to expand on what I was saying before. And I just kind of want to tell people that God is not a man. Like, you don't have to worry about the same things you would have to worry about when you're talking to a person, when you talk to God. Because I think some people, they feel so ashamed of their past and things that have happened. They feel ashamed and unworthy to call upon the name of God. They feel, and I know it's a joke. People say, "Oh, God doesn't like me," like that's a joke or something, but that's not the case. I want people to know that you can come to God without having to worry about the things you have to worry about when you talk to a person. And I think sometimes our belief systems can limit us, because sometimes we're raised with this kind of idea of God's a punisher, he's the condemner, he's, the person that's going to be on judgment day, and he's going to, send you to hell and all of these things. God is love. God is compassion. God is empathy. He's all of those things that you would want when you talk to a person. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling ashamed or if you're feeling unworthy to talk to God, I can't say don't let that keep you from the light of God, because that's easy to say, but I just want you to have in the back of your head that it's not that way, and you can come to God honestly, because God knows everything. He knows everything. So, and that might be scary, like, oh my gosh. But
yeah, he absolutely does. He does.
He loves you anyway, and that's the thing. So yeah, don't be. I hate to tell people don't or should. Just know that it's not that way, and you can come to God. You can come to God with anything.
Yeah.
Yes, and we just want to be encouraging. Yes. To just don't stay where you are. Yes. So just to take the next step in your process. For me, at some point, the next step became reaching out to Ms. Cheryl. And I believe because I reached out to her, she helped me on my path to go back, to get back to God. Because in the midst of all of this, there was a point that I stopped going to church. My ex-husband and I, we were in the same church, and those ministers and pastors didn't help me. I stopped going to the church that he was in. I wasn't in church at all. When I left, I actually had service in my house with my children on Sunday mornings. So if one of my children, I would have one of my children pray. One of my children would sing. I would do like a quick message, and we had service at home. Amen. And when I connected with Miss Cheryl, I began to go to church with her. And so she helped to rebuild my life back in, the house of God. Because it really is, to me, it's hard to find a church, first of all, to be in. But the support that she showed me, the compassion that she showed me, opened the door for me to move back into going to church where, I knew I needed to be, and to become active again in ministry, because I had completely shut down. I stopped everything. So I'm saying that my connection to Ms. Cheryl was a connection for me to continue to move on in different parts of my life. So where I was stuck, Ms. Cheryl really helped me to move forward. And she did things for me that I wasn't even thinking about, and then I didn't even, it didn't cross my mind. I wasn't thinking about going to anybody's church. I wasn't thinking about being involved in ministry. I wasn't thinking about preaching again, anything like that. But when I stepped into that place, that vulnerable place of making that call, she really helped me to get back to where I was supposed to be. And it was still a journey, but she helped me to get to the next step. She helped me to move a little bit further. And so that's what we really want to do on tonight, is encourage you that there is support. And I am so sorry if you have run into walls,
Yes.
if you have run into disappointment, if you have run into people who don't believe you or who are not helpful. I am sorry if that has happened to you, but I want to tell you that there is a help and a support. If it's just between you and God,
Yeah.
He hears you, He sees you, He cares about you. So if you open your heart and let Him guide you and direct you to whomever that person may be, the people, the organizations, be it a church, be it a community service, be it a domestic violence agency, let Him lead you.
Yeah.
But I am telling you, this is not the end for you. So you do not give up on you, because you are worth it. You are loved. You are important. You are valuable. You mean something. And I am so glad I picked up the phone. And when I called Miss Cheryl, she confirmed to me that I am important, that my life does mean something, and your life means something as well. So you do what you need to do for yourself. If you need to just stop and pray, if you need to journal, if you need to write, if you need to make a phone call, then you do that. But the point is to make a step. You
Yes.
take the next step because you are worth it. And if nobody else has told you that, I am telling you, you are worth it. And I don't care what religion you serve in, your life is important. God loves
Amen.
you. And there is nobody who has a right to hurt you in any kind of way, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, man or woman, whatever you declare your sexuality to be. That's a whole nother conversation. If you're talking about religion and sin, that's not what I'm doing right now. I'm talking about you being safe. I'm talking about you caring for yourself, you being able to lay down and sleep at night, not
Yes.
being afraid of what somebody is going to do to you, you being able to walk in and out of your own home, you being able to go where you want to go and do what you want to do because you can, because you decide to. You deserve that. You deserve not to live in fear. You deserve to be able to make a decision. You deserve to be able to make a mistake as a grown man or a grown woman and not fear the repercussions of your loved one. You deserve that. So we encourage you on tonight to take that next step, whatever you determine that to be, whatever that support may be for you. We encourage you to take that next step because it does get better. It will get better, but you have to move. You have to open up. You have to open your mouth. You have to make a phone call. You have to speak to someone. You have to do something for you. If I could do it for you, I would.
Mm.
But you have to
Yep.
do something for you. I can't stress that enough. Um, Miss Cheryl, I would just ask you if you would, what you would say to our listeners, because some of us are going through that grieving process that you spoke
Mm.
of before. So there are some who you may be out of immediate danger, but that
Mm.
grieving process is real.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And as I said, it reminds me so much of grief. And the best way that I can explain it is, I mentioned to you, my son-in-law Brandon lost his little sister, and her funeral was last week. And my nephew preached the eulogy, and he said something so profound. He said, "Grief is not an event. Grief is a process." So it's not over after the funeral and the grief just goes and flies away. That's not what happens. Now you have to live with your new normal. So whatever your situation is, whether it's you've lost a loved one, you've lost a marriage, whatever has happened, you have to, as you said, make that next step. And you got to keep going. I know it's hard. I know how hard that is. Grief is no joke. It is absolutely no joke. And I think that, first of all, we have to give ourselves grace, because sometimes you just don't feel like getting off the bed.
Yes.
You don't feel like praying. You don't feel like talking to God. You like, Lord, why you let this happen to me? That's how you feel. But grief is not an event. Grief is a process. And eventually, if you just keep going, that's it. Sometimes you just like the hamster in the wheel. Just be the hamster in the wheel and keep going. Even though you don't feel like it, you don't want to do it, just try. You may not be successful all the time, but if you could just try, because if you just do what you, because we have to do something too. Everybody
Yes.
thinks that, oh, I have the Lord in my life, so he's going to take care, but we have to do stuff too. He expects us to show our faith. So if you can just make that one little step, whatever it is, as you said, Minister T, if it's a phone call, if it's a whisper to somebody, if it's a call to the police, whatever it is, try your best to do it. Because once you do it and you start that process, as you said, it's going to get better. It don't feel good all the time.
Yes.
It don't feel, grief does not feel good all the time. It really does not. But if you just make the step to get started, to try to get started and just push yourself, you'll be surprised what God will do. Because, ultimately, like you said, no matter what your religion is, ultimately God is the one that's going to push you to the next level that you're supposed to be. But you got to do a little something too. You got to make that little step. So that would be my encouragement, just to not to give up and to realize, yes, you are important. The Lord loves you. And no matter what is going on, it don't have to stay that way. It will
Yes.
definitely get better. Amen.
Yes.
And then also, speaking of grief, I heard what Miss Cheryl was saying when you were saying sometimes people think, God, why would you let this happen to me? And when I was talking about opening up to God earlier, sometimes you feel like especially when you've just experienced trauma, you feel like, why would I open up to you? You weren't there. Why would I open up to someone who was absent? That's a lot. And I think that's a form of grief. Sometimes we can grieve our previous outlook on the world, because when something really traumatic happens and you change and it changes how you see life, how you see people, how you see the world, how you see God, it's just shattering.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to tell you that you can be honest with God about those feelings of anger, those feelings of abandonment, those feelings of rage. You can be honest with God about that, because sometimes you think, oh, I can't when I pray, I can't talk about being angry at God. Like, I'm supposed to be uttering praises. What? Like, I can't tell God I'm mad at him. What? No, you can be honest about those feelings. You really can. Because it's gonna be a block in your spiritual walk.
Amen.
It's gonna be an energetic block if you don't. So address that with God.
Yeah. Because he already knows anyway. He knows that you're angry. He's just waiting for you to tell him, Lord, I'm mad. I don't like this.
Yes.
I don't like this. And that's fine. Think about what you do with your own kids. Usually they might say they don't like it. Whatever. Do what I said. Keep it moving.
Right.
God, I wonder if God thinks about us like that, just like we do our kids. Like, okay, I really don't care. Do what I said. I love you, but you got to do what I said. So you're absolutely right. A lot of people, that is a big thing. We have to be honest with God, because he already knows anyway.
Yes.
But he waiting for us to talk.
Yes. Having a conversation with God, praying to God, sitting with God.
Yes.
It's our opportunity to be honest, to get our hearts and our minds clear, because yes, he already knows, but it's our opportunity to sit before God and have a conversation and be open. It's like when the woman with the issue of blood touched the hem of
Mm.
his garment when Jesus said, who touched me?
Touch me.
It wasn't that he didn't know. He
Mhm.
knew who touched him. That was her opportunity to step out of her fear and
Yes.
say, it was me. And then she could keep walking forward in her healing after that. And when
Amen.
she started walking forward in her healing after that, she wasn't walking by herself. Jesus was walking with her.
Amen. Amen.
So there is just so much more that I could just say thank you for, Miss Cheryl. So I really do thank you for all that you have done for me years ago, because what you did for me years ago carried me through my process and even through now. So I thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Thank you, Carrie, for
Praise the
being
Lord.
with
Thank you
us.
for inviting me.
Yes. Love Faye,
Appreciate
if you want to catch up on previous episodes from our program, you can visit our YouTube channel at Suffering in Silence DV. We thank you for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay, we want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. Good evening. Thank you so